Live? Yay! Hello, everyone, and welcome back to World Hoppers, a collaborative channel where we donate all AdSense revenue and merch sales to charity. And today we're here to talk about the Winternight Trilogy by Catherine Arden. Basically, everyone here, really enjoys or loves the series, so it's kind of a gush fest. So we'll just go through what we like about the books. So we'll start out non-spoiler. So if you haven't read them, you can get an idea of what we love about them and see if it's really for you, and then go into spoilers and talk about, more details. But I think the first thing I was wondering was how recently has everyone read it? Because I read these in 2020, so I'm not going to be the clearest one here, but I do have some memories, some strong memories of certain parts of the book.
I literally just finished this week.
Nice.
Right.
I finished my reread of the trilogy this week as well. So,
Okay.
I finished the trilogy almost a year ago, so April of last year.
I finished the last week of December. So this Christmas season.
I read The Bear and the Nightingale when it came out, and then waited until last year to finally get to Girl in the Tower. So I reread Bear and the Nightingale because I was like, I don't remember, and then read Girl in the Tower and The Winter of the Witch, and then just now at the end of 2021, I reread The Bear and the Nightingale, and I just reread Girl in the Tower.
Everyone's so refreshed.
I'm only refreshed because of Evie.
I reread it last year. I didn't get to go, Jess.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm actually not bad. No, I reread it last year. I think I read them when they came out, or maybe I read The Bear and the Nightingale when The Girl in the Tower came out, and then I read Winter of the Witch when it came out. And I reread them last year because I wanted to be cozy.
Which is
for winter.
How I first heard about the trilogy was watching Angela's channel. That's how it got on my TBR, and Evie made it happen. So
I love it.
I'm excited. It's going to be an annual reread for me, for sure.
It's perfect. It's just like one of the most atmospheric books that you really feel like cold. I know everyone says that, but you feel cold. And,
you do.
You feel you're in the mist. You're in a cold Russian winter, and the vibe. Because I remember when the first one came out in 2017, and I had just joined Bookstagram around this time. So I remember seeing I saw it around, and I was like, I don't know. But I didn't pick it up till 2020. I had a copy for
the original cover, the American cover of Bear and the Nightingale, makes you feel cold just looking at the cover.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And I was like, because it had a lot of hype on Bookstagram, and I'm like, well, all right, I got the first one. Let me see.
It was actually deserved in this case.
Yes. And then, because I haven't been able to read series back to back for a long time, but I was like, oh, I need the next ones now. And so it is so good. Is there anyone here? It's not me. I'm gonna go ahead and say you can give a good, just brief synopsis explainer of the series and overview.
I vote on Evie.
Evie?
So it is, without spoiling anything about the trilogy as a whole, it follows Vasya, who is our main character in medieval Russia, but there are fantastical elements to it, which apparently that means I like historical fantasy. Didn't know that until I read the series. And it just follows her as, at least the first book, in her small town, and it kind of addresses and explores this idea of tradition of old religions versus Christianity, and how to balance that, and dealing with people and their influences on either side. So
that was good. Thank you. I didn't expect all of the religion conversations. I really liked that in there, and I love Vasya so much.
Anytime in history when the Christian church is basically kind of being accepted and it's being integrated into their society, the struggle with the people of wanting to still uphold the traditions they've grown up with and also not make the Christian God mad. They're, you know, they're just, it's a constant battle of what they need to be doing. And just when an author illustrates that struggle, I mean, it's not something you can just up and do overnight.
No.
And I loved how she illustrated that struggle with the people. And it just sorry, it felt so real.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm apologizing to my desk.
I do that too.
It has its priority. I don't want to make it mad.
But for, I feel like a series that is a little more arm's length and kind of fairy tale-esque in its way it's telling it, at the same time, it is so like deeply human and messy and complicated, where like I do feel like they aren't just these like archetypal characters that aren't human. Like they have, I feel it's like an arm's length telling, and yet it's this really deep dive into like what makes people tick and what makes them, what motivates them.
Yeah.
One could argue it's another layer of what Arden is trying to explore in that first book, especially. But
Another
Yeah.
thing like I didn't know, but I really like about it is because it's in winter and it's cold all the time, it's fantasy, but it has like horrifying elements, especially in the first book. And like, I'm kind of a scaredy cat. I don't read horror, but it was like just the right amount of like dark fairy tale, like creepiness that I really
love
loved in the
horror.
series. So
It was just a marriage of my two favorite genres. And so I was just eating it up. Although at first I wasn't sold. It took me about 5 chapters of The Bear and the Nightingale before it hooked me. And wasn't this Catherine Arden's debut novel?
Yes.
I was floored by
It's
that.
amazing. It's such a good debut.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her writing is just so beautiful and lyrical. And I know like we have some differing opinions amongst us, but I also really loved the romance, and I can be
yes.
I can be a hard sell on that kind of a romance where it's
Same.
like the age and the power stuff, but like man, she sold me on it.
She
Yeah.
did. Yes.
It was so good.
Leona, stay on mute. Be quiet. No,
I
but
was actually
same.
going to talk about the transliterated Russian, but we went to romance, so okay.
I
We
mean,
got to the good stuff.
we haven't even touched
Exactly.
Vazia yet. There's some positivity we can
Yeah.
all
I
connected
love
with.
her.
The romance, I don't like that kind of stuff at all. I am not interested, but I was invested. I was just like, when are we going to get to some more of that?
The love story of these books
That's
is
so
my
good.
love for Vasya.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm often frustrated with, because she's not like other girls, but she is different, but in a way that isn't like trying to be. So I'm not, because she's trapped in this. She definitely doesn't want to be a typical woman in her society at that time. Like, doesn't want to
Yeah.
be just like married off and do all of the things that is expected of her. But it just feels like natural, and like, I could relate to her in that, like, well, yeah, I'm young. I want to explore. I don't want to get married. I don't want to, and then her challenging and her struggle with religion and the influence with the new, or the stepmom or whatever.
Mhm.
Svasya.
Hashtag
love
can
her.
relate on the stepmother.
Yeah.
yeah, I
I'm,
will say
I'm on
that,
my fourth one.
So I will add that one thing that I really, really liked about Vasya, and this is not my original idea. I heard somebody else say it, but I can't remember who. So if it was you, thank you for this thought. But I really liked how she was not like those other girls, but her strength was not in. She wasn't a female character with masculine traits. Her strength, she showed it through traditionally feminine attributes, and I thought that was really, really nice to see and read about, that you can have strength with feminine, being feminine and
I
stuff.
was like,
that.
even in the
So-
part, I don't think this is very spoilery, but like, I guess minor spoilers, like there's a part of the series where she dresses as a boy. And like, even that part didn't feel like she was like becoming masculine. It was like, well, in order to get these rights and to get freedom and to get, not assaulted, I will put pants and a hat on, like,
Yeah, it was
because
super
you got to
sneaky.
do what you got to do.
And I think something that's great about her wanting to be herself and maybe not conform is she wasn't against other women conforming. Like, you never get that sense throughout the series that she's looking down on her sister or other women who are in the lifestyle that they're living that are maybe not comfortable. That's not the right word, but they don't want to break out of the box, like especially with her sister Ola. I think that's how you say her name. I'm not positive.
Sounds right to me.
Yeah, I feel like the things that I loved about growing up, the things that I loved about the Song of the Lioness series by Tamora Pierce and like Alana in that series is like this is like the grown-up version of the same type of character, which I think is probably why I loved her. It's the same thing of this girl who's like, I want to be a girl, but also I want to do all the boy things, and I don't want you to put me in a box.
She also
And
has
I
mega
just
horse girl energy.
I love it.
Monet, been quiet. Did you like the romance or no?
No. No,
It's
I did
Speak
not
up.
I did not find it to be a romance. I thought that these are two people that are outside of any social construct, and they exist outside a bubble together, and they find comfort in that. But I don't think that it's a romance. I think it's more of a there's no one else that understands me, no one else that understands you, and
Yeah.
I have needs, you have needs, and we'll figure out.
That's fair. That's fair.
I don't actually disagree, but I just still liked those interactions. If
Same.
we're just going to define
Yeah.
it with a different label.
Yes, same.
But I think if it had gone like, that's why I said like it came up to the line before I think before we started recording, that like it came up to the line of it being a romance, but it didn't cross the line into it being like this full on romance where I would have hated it. But it was like enough there for you people that like all the romance to be like, I see it, it's romantic, and like not enough for me to be like dismayed. I was like, it's getting there, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
So
Well, because like I would never call the series a fantasy romance
Oh, no.
series.
Mm-mm,
Like
mm-mm.
it's, it's a fantasy series with a strong romantic subplot. Like, but it's not.
I
what
do
it's all
recommend
about.
it to my friends who I know like a strong romance in their books, though. Like
That's actually probably
that's what I
valid.
do, and they really love it. So it works that way.
It's got the vibes, strong
It
vibes.
does.
So Angela, if you had to pick what's your favorite book of the trilogy, I'll go first. Mine is The Girl in the Tower.
Say it again.
She sent me, this is a page turner. Page
Mhm.
1 to the end. I was stressed. I was pressed. I was worried. This gave me all of the emotions. So that's for me. Angela?
I
Angela?
really, really hate this question. I think it would have been easier to answer on my first read than on my reread. Because having read them twice, like, when you reread, things don't hit the same way because certain
well,
things
then
are
what
coming.
would you have said the first time through?
So the first time through, it wouldn't have been the first book. The first book I gave my lowest rating, my first read, and they're now all 5 stars now. So the first book on reread had the most growth. And like, I think the last book stayed about the same, maybe went down a little. And then the second book actually went down a little for me because I didn't care as much about the action-packedness of it on my second read for some reason. I don't know why. I could feel different in like 6 months.
I could see that.
But I know Leanna disagrees with me, but I think the ending is like really solid for me and what I like thematically about the story, and like the way that the character handles grief and like deals with things I really relate to basically every time I read it. So I think the third book balances the thematic stuff I love from the first book and kind of has a better plot than the first book. Like it is paced a bit better. So it's probably the third book, but I hate this question. So
Thank you for participating. I appreciate it.
It is a hard question. I feel like the first book is the only one I've reread. All 3 of these got 5 stars for me. And Angela, I agree. I do love the ending. I think it nails the ending personally, but it's not my favorite. I don't know. It's between the first 2 for me. Like, I did really like Girl in the Tower. You're right. Like the experience was definitely page turnery, but I love like the vibe of book 1, the way it gets into the thematic stuff in book 1 with like the religion and the gender stuff. Like, I don't know. It might be book 1. I'm just
I
gonna say
think book 1's the best book, but is it the one I had the most fun reading? I don't know. That's my like
I
struggle.
I probably had the most fun reading Girl in the Tower, but like I do feel like my favorite is probably still book one. Yeah.
I'm gonna give a political answer and be like, they all have their pros and but in all seriousness, like the first book. So I actually read the first book as part of the book club that Angela is in, that I occasionally drop in on. And I'm so glad that I actually did, because like before reading The Bear and the Nightingale, I hadn't loved a book nearly as much since I first read Persuasion 20 years ago. So it was a once in 20 years experience for me.
Ooh.
So I have that like to hold on to. But like the second book, especially upon reread, I really connected with Olia. Just in her kind of thematic exploration of like motherhood and stuff like that. And then the last book, I feel is just, I don't know, like I loved the idea of, slight spoilers, like 2 endings essentially, which normally I would probably hate, but it just works so well.
Also, that book club was a bunch of people who don't read fantasy. I made them read a fantasy book, and they struggled.
Oh.
So, also, in that book club, one of the people pointed out something, and that was a spoiler for book 3. And Angela, I think whoa, sorry, Kat. Sorry. I'm pretty sure I lost like all color in my face when I heard the person say that, and I'm like,
someone
what?
picked out a big piece of foreshadowing in book 1.
Yeah.
And they didn't know it was a spoiler, and I didn't confirm or deny, but
yeah, but I didn't pick up on it when I first read it until someone said it. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, well, now that I've finished, I probably know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Well, my favorite is Girl in the Tower. Like, no question, no contest. Girl in the Tower all the way. It never stood a chance of being anything else. I love the ending. I thought the ending was appropriate. I was surprised. I was really surprised by it. But, you know, the first book didn't start off great for me. I grew into it and I loved it. The second book, we know our characters. We know what's at stake. And it's just, we get to see our main character and sidekick just really, I just loved the journey. The journey was everything to me. Just, and then the third book was wonderful. I loved it for what it was, but I missed the age and the where we were. I would be happy to have stayed 6 books in this era right here. I don't foresee, when I reread this series, ever being any other favorite than Girl in the Tower. Just, it's so hard to talk about it without spoiling it.
My favorite was actually the.
Ooh, okay.
I really enjoyed the second one. I feel like the author lures you into like this sense of comfort, and you just exist within this bubble. But breaking out and Vasya not having any of her crutches was, for me, one of the best coming of age stories, because Catherine removed anything that would have been a crutch or would have led Vasya to like lean on it.
But
and
she didn't have to hurt me so bad when
I
she
was crying.
did it.
I definitely broke out into tears. I started crying.
I mean, I
Uncertain.
sent Voxers to Evie where she probably couldn't understand me through my tears. It was so bad. Like, I'm talking about woke up with my face swollen still the next day.
Yeah, my husband was like, is she okay?
I was on Zoom actually with Erin from Book and Busy. We were doing like a whole Zoom, and, like my jaw dropped, and she was like, "It happened." And I just, she has videos. She recorded me. And I am tearing up. I was cursing. I was like, "I'm gonna write Captain Arden a message on Instagram." I was upset, but I was nervous because I was like, "How is Vasya going to survive this? And like, how is she going to maneuver to the ending?" And I didn't even realize how much of a crutch the other characters had became for me. So to have that uncertainty in our main character of me not knowing if she is strong enough to withstand this learning to be like, you know what, Basia really grew up in these 3 books, because I was nervous for a second. So book 3 was like the perfect ending for me, because I didn't even believe in her after that situation, and I did not think that Basia was strong enough to overcome. So I enjoyed that. She really grew. Yes,
I totally agree.
Got chills. My name and hit me.
Mhm.
So I mean, also Girl in the Tower. It's my favorite. And fortunately, in this set,
Showing off
it's
those
orange, which is my favorite color. So I think that it's just the universe is like, correct, that is your favorite. But I mean, I just felt like it was the best parts of the trilogy were not. I don't mean to say like my favorite. Well, I guess my favorite parts, but I mean, I think it was just like it was at its peak performance. Like it was like all of the like folklore-ness and the I'm still young and learningness of the first book was there, but she had leveled up somewhat, and we were in a new place, so it was bigger, and it was more. I've upset Monet, and then like I personally also just really, I mean, I thought the pacing was incredible. Like I think the first one is a little bit slow, and I think the third one, I know y'all love the third one, and I think it's good, but I thought the pacing was really off on the third one. I felt like in terms of like where the climax was, and then we still had a ton of falling action, and I was like, what? We've like resolved the big thing, and we're still
I had
going.
trouble reading
threw
that
me.
one.
Mhm.
I was very slow reading it.
Yeah. So as Girl in the Tower, I thought it was like faster than Bear and the Nightingale, and also like the ending wasn't like such a fizzle as like Winter of the Witch was. So it was like paced the best, and like all of the folklore stuff was the best. She was the best. It was just the best. Plus, then also like ever since reading Deathless by Catherine Valente, I've been fascinated by the story of Koschei the Deathless, and so it was just fun for me to like when I started to realize that this book was going to be mostly drawing on Koschei the Deathless, and then I started being like to guess like, okay, which parts of the like Koschei myth are in here, who is who and what's what. Then I was like just having the most fun as like a nerd being like, I think that's this, and I think that's this, and I think that's gonna be, that's why her name is that.
Yep.
And I think
Yeah.
also, like, I mean, The Girl in the Tower, you would think as a middle book it would suffer from middle book syndrome. It doesn't at all. At all.
But I also usually like middle books and trilogies the best because I'm weird. So
Sometimes it bees like that. I read Deathless also, and this just gave me more of just like the folklore and things I wanted. Like that is Deathless, but obviously that was 1 book versus 3, and I want more stories like this that are based in like a folklore but explore, but there's that, because it's not like some super fantastical thing, like right, obviously it is fantastical to believe in these things, the folklore elements and certain things that happen, like, you know, a smart talking horse, but like
well, I think what's unusual and what makes it kind of difficult to explain sometimes is that these books are a retelling of sorts, but not of any one particular story or myth, not of any one particular figure from myth. It's drawing from all of Russian fairy tales, all of Russian folklore, and telling its own story and finding homages, and it's a pastiche, if we want to get so like or like Deathless by Catherine Valente is specifically retelling Koschei the Deathless, like that's, and then like it's weaving in some Russian history, but it's like only concerned about that story, whereas like this trilogy is like, we'll have some Koschei, we'll have some Vasilis the Beautiful, we'll just have them all.
Yes, I'm trying to think of what those
I think also why I struggle to pick a favorite though, and this obviously doesn't happen to all of you, but books 2 and 3, since I read them so close to each other, and because book 3 picks up instantly after book 2, they're like one book to me. Like I feel like the first book is its own more literary historical fantasy, and then books 2 and 3 are like the same story because 3 is the fallout of book 2, and like so it's really hard for me to be like, I love book 3, but I wouldn't have loved book 3 without book 2's plot. Like I don't know.
It's fine, Angela.
No, it's
can love
not.
them all.
I know I've disappointed you.
You can love them all. So wait, I don't know. I can't even pronounce that Evie, so I don't know if that's what that
Oh, I thought that's what you were.
Coyote, the little devils.
Yeah,
The little
I
house.
I loved
devils.
them.
yes,
Loved
those.
them.
Oh, I love
Because I
them
think
too.
those are a little bit were in Deathless, but not a lot. And yeah, I love those elements. If you had to, because obviously these aren't for everyone, sadly, but who do you think, like, what reader or like someone who loves something else, like who would you recommend this series to?
Well, as much as I hate Uprooted, I mean, I don't think it's people who like Uprooted. I think they should like this because it's like the good version of that. So, like, it should be a crossover hit. I would say if you like Uprooted, you'd like this, but if you like this, you won't necessarily like Uprooted.
I would take
think
a
that's
different, like a different angle. I've been reading a lot of Russian literature over the Russian classics over the last year, and so when I got into these, it felt good. The atmosphere. I was used to all of the different names and titles of a dress, like that. That might be a little bit jarring to some of you who haven't read that before, but she's got a glossary in the back.
Also, the first time I read Bear and the Nightingale, I did not know there was a glossary for the transliterated Russian. And like, I know like a little bit. I mean, I can't speak it, but like I know some Russian words just from like my own background. So that I just like went off, just like powered through going off of what I know of Russian. I was like, it's a good thing I know a little bit of Russian because how are people? And then I would like last page of Bear and I was, oh, there's the glossary.
I didn't read the glossary either.
I just went fantasy mode hard. I'm like, oh, these are fantasy words.
Yeah,
context clues. And I know
that's what I did. Same.
When you're like me and you get a new book, and the first thing you have to do is smell it. If you open your eyes, you see things like, "Ooh, what's that?" So, but I always look. I'm so
my first version of this book was the ebook because I got it for $2. Because
I gotcha.
I've heard of this, so I wasn't on the book internet except for I knew of Reddit, and we all know fantasy Reddit is a weird place. It's not. It's a place.
It's a place.
To Fantasy Reddit's credit, they have a pretty diverse monthly book club, and this was the book club book, and that's why I picked it up for $2. So I only had the ebook, so I didn't know about the glossary. But not knowing about the glossary was why my local book club, who normally only reads historical and literary fiction, struggled. They're like, we didn't know what these words were, and I'm like, you guys are smart. No. You make me read explorative narrative structures all the freaking time. This had a beginning, middle, and end.
And also. Go ahead, Evie. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that oddly enough, I would actually recommend this to people that are more in the literary crowd because I think it's a good gateway into like fantasy and soft fantasy and stuff like that.
And I paired the audiobooks with it. The narrator did wonderful. Like she spoke like a Russian for them, and she pronounced the words. It was just very.
I did not like the audiobook.
Yeah, I did not
like
the
man, I loved it. It just added romance of the language.
It might be helpful to hear the words pronounced, so like I'll give it
that,
but like only that.
I couldn't. Like I had to read these physically. Like I could not listen to the narrator.
Oh yikes!
Well, see, I struggle because when I have to stop and do things like walk the dogs and cook supper, I don't want to stop reading.
Yeah.
And y'all, I live in Central Florida. I'm listening to these books walking around in 80 degrees, and I'm getting chill bumps because of just how well she is at writing how Russian winter in this place lasted 8 months out of the year. I mean, I was like, this is great. It's like having air conditioning outside for a change. This is the first time I felt cold in 3 years.
I would say that it depends on what you like about the series. If you like how she eased you into like fairy tales and how smooth the transition was, I would say Spinning Silver. I feel like it does that very well. But if you're into like the coming of age, the Mongol Empire war, and like light fantasy aspects, I would say She Who Became the Sun. If you have these are both books that require patience, and they talk both about gender and how women are seen and during the same time period, but you'll get the Mongol Empire from like a Chinese standpoint instead of early like Russia. So I would say
you're so right about She Who Became the Sun. Now that you've said it, because everyone compares it to either their comps of what they have. What is it, Song of Achilles and Mulan. And then everyone then compares it to the Poppy War because Ren and the main character in that are kind of. If they were related, I wouldn't be surprised. But like. It's basically how I feel about them. But no, you're totally right. They require a lot of patience. I've had success in my real life giving this to people who I've already eased into fantasy with Brandon Sanderson, like Warbreaker or Elantris, but also people who have liked Sarah J. Maas, like people who typically have like strong female women in their fiction, but really like captivating adventure stories, which like isn't in the first book. But once you get to the second book, it really, like we've all said, just like picks up.
Which is why the second book is the best. You agree with this?
Well, I also think though that like because the prose is so lyrical, it's got this like fairy tale vibe to it, and so I think also people who enjoy that, who can enjoy a slower paced, atmospheric fantasy that's really about the vibes and has that kind of like poetic language to it, could really enjoy something like this.
They're also short, so it's not like it's a big ask, right?
Yeah.
Like the first book's like
No.
300 pages.
But the first book for me was, in terms of the writing, the most pretentious and like grandiose language. And I was just like, you are saying this in like the most prestigious, highfalutin way.
I think it is more thematically indulgent. I will give you that. But I think she does a good job. Therefore, I'm removing pretentious.
Yeah.
Like if you're not used to reading literary works like this, where like they
it is more literary. I just like
this is why I think like when
but I
Evie
love
said,
that.
that's why I would agree with Evie that like for people who tend to read more literary fiction, I would be like, oh, you'd probably like this, like it has fantastical elements, but it reads more like literary fiction than like a fantasy book.
Yep.
I believed that until I gave this to 20 people who do that all the time and they struggle.
Those
like,
20 people, I don't know what to tell you, Angela.
How dare they?
Evie was there. I mean, they gave it like 3.5 to 4 stars as a group, so it wasn't bad.
Unacceptable.
But they all were so confused by the world building. Like when you're not used to reading books with world building.
Okay,
like,
but at the same time, this
world
world building is Russian history that they could look up. That these are like this isn't like Brandon Sanderson invented like Alabama.
I agreed
like,
with you. I just had the sample size. I'm just saying.
I think these are fake
school.
I feel like maybe they're fake literary fiction readers. Maybe they get Spark Notes or something, and they don't actually do it themselves.
I'm following, I'm keeping up, but like if someone was to complain that this is like going over their head, it's like the N.K. Jemisin situation whenever it's like this book was so confusing, and it's like I understood, but like okay, I get where you might have gone.
Yeah,
also it's like inspired by Russian fairy tales. Fairy tales are for children,
right?
So like pick up a book of Russian fairy tales and you'll know what's happening.
The N.K. Jemisin thing bugs me because I'm like, it's not hard to understand. You just
hurts my feelings. Yeah, it hurts my feelings when people say that.
Because it's not true. It's just that you have to go with her and trust that she will give you the information you need when you need it. Like
you have to be patient. It's
everyone
not
here also likes the Broken Earth trilogy. I just checked, so we could also just segue.
I was just waiting. I was like, is there somebody here that is like, I hated the fifth one?
I know, right? I'm like, oh god, I hope not.
I'll just remove from stream.
But I don't. Is there something to that though? Across, I mean, I would never have said, "Oh, if you like Broken Earth, you'll like Winternight." But like, we're all fans of both, and all of us. We often disagree about other things. So,
I mean, they both have a lot of like strong female characters and thematic richness that you can dig into if you want to, and require patience. So maybe
they both have strong coming of age stories.
I've just been confused at when people will be like a third of the way through or 2/3 of the way through, and they're getting upset because they're not understanding what's going on. When did people get that way without finishing the book? Like I finished the book before I get mad about something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just finish the book.
Like, it's like just
like
her.
Like while you're reading
if the author answered the questions in the first 25 pages, it's over. Like,
can you imagine reading a murder mystery and being like, well, I don't know who he did it 2/3 through, so.
Also, she does answer the question in the prologue. You just don't know it till the end.
Yeah,
there it is.
I think people get wrong with they are not normally high fantasy readers, but N.K. Jemisin is just so well renowned and like always hyped up that people start with her.
But there are a lot of fantasy readers that read Broken Earth who are like, no, I didn't understand it, so I DNF'd it.
That's
I'm just like,
yes, so much.
I take it personally. I take it very personally.
I get really upset when people are like, I don't like second person. It throws me off. So I decided not to. And I'm like, that's a whole grammatical way of talking. You just decided you don't want to engage with.
I mean, I would say it is like my favorite adult SFF series, period. And I think it's going to be a classic of the genre. Like,
I mean, it's like in the
Absolutely.
Hugo 3 times in a row. So
right?
I
this just
mean-
became a Jemison stream. But okay.
Yeah, Jess, did you
Well,
want to bring us
sorry,
back?
Jess.
Catherine
Sorry,
Arden.
Jess.
Oh.
What's the next question? What are we talking about?
Oh, really quickly, it was what are the best editions and why are they the fairy loot? And I know Leanna has hers
Oh,
right there. So
ha-
you can
You can have your ugly fairy loot. These are the best. Beautiful.
Now,
just
I do
said
love
ugly?
these covers, but these are not ugly, Leslie.
I mean,
You just jelly. Look at these sprayed pages.
I mean, it
Just
could be worse.
Covers, though.
I do feel like they're a little
look at the naked book
busy.
on that. Just
They're
look at
what?
that.
What you?
They're a
Oh, I
little
do
busy.
see- I do
They're a little
love
busy.
that.
Oh,
there's
what
some-
edition is that, Evie?
Oh, she has the
Oh,
UK.
those are the UK,
UK.
ones. Yeah.
Look,
But
What bothers me
my
that the UK
favorite
ones
book.
stopped, they didn't have a consistent style. The first one is a totally different style from the second and third ones in the UK hardcovers.
Oh,
In
yeah,
their
that's
defense,
true.
the books have a different style after the first one. Maybe they just went with that.
I love the busyness, Bethany. Look at that, babe.
and I will tell you guys, as a little girl, I loved the Black Stallion. And I just had this dream that I was going to find myself a horse like that. So when I read this series, it brought all of those feelings back
Oh.
from when I was little reading that classic. Oh man.
Look here, solo
So-
babe.
Hey, Jess.
Not going
If
to
only you could actually like talk to a horse like that and have
Oh,
it be your bestie.
I
Are we
love
switching into
his-
spoilers soon so we
Wait,
can just
yes,
yes,
let it out?
but- okay,
But like weirdly, I
while
wouldn't
we're-
have thought of this until I said that like a talking horse, but he's not really a talking horse, but you know, like she can
Right.
communicate with Solove and like Robin Hobb, because like
Mhm.
communicating in
Night
weird
Eye.
ways. I feel like there's some crossover there. Jess secretly is the biggest fan of Hobb in the world. She doesn't know it yet.
Her
but she
writing
is
I'm
obsessed.
good with talking
phenomenal.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good with talking horses. I was like obsessed with the Horse and His Boy from Chronicles of Narnia when I was a kid. So
Mm.
like,
I just love talking, sentient animals and stories. But yes, spoilers.
Yeah.
So favorite character. I mean, we've already
Okay,
kind of
yes.
talked about Vasya,
But-
but we can go into other characters.
but can I say, like, related to the last question, why don't we have great editions of the Broken Earth trilogy yet?
Okay, same though.
I
I
mean,
really.
If
I
you
mean,
have
that's
art, so
the
here's where I'm
covers
at.
are
I'm about to buy
gorgeous,
the
though.
Finnish editions because the Finnish editions are the subterranean press covers, which are the best covers that exist. We don't
See,
have
I
many.
love the covers that we have.
much
I
are
think they are gorgeous.
But I
They're-
can't
they're
even get a
among some of my
hardback for
favorites.
less than $500. That's a crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just have to be
tweeted a
happy
Luma
with my
crate,
paperback.
fairy
oh my
loot.
God.
So, I
They
mean, like,
need-
as-
they need to
As much
release,
as like this
special
is me
editions.
saying this, so that's how you know how serious I am. Broken Binding just announced their subscription with the first books they were gonna have for First Law. And like as exciting as that is, and as much as I want those, there are a lot of different editions of First Law. So do I want
I have
these? Yes,
them
I
all.
do.
Yeah.
But should it be Broken Earth instead? Yes, it should.
100%.
Yeah, I
Every
wouldn't be
time.
mad about it.
They keep doing series that already have multiple editions.
Yes,
I'm like, please
like,
branch out to
come on,
something. that
somebody
only has
do,
one.
It
like,
may
fancy
be
editions of Broken Earth.
It's
We're
it's
going to
probably
get
authors
TV
that have a
cover
good-
editions before we get fancy editions,
Don't
and I'm
you
going to die.
do not.
We're going to. They're making like, is it a show or a movie? I don't
You're
know.
right.
I
We
think
probably
it's
will get like
movies.
tie-in paperbacks first. Oh,
Yeah.
Because that's the
But
other
you
thing.
know
Our
what?
current
But you know
paperbacks are
what?
kind of bad paper.
that's true. I will take it though if the show and those editions lead us to getting.
Well, I
nice,
would
fancy
guess that
editions.
like in the lead up to the show, you're gonna get the attention of like a Luma crate and whatever,
hope
and
so.
they're gonna do a special
They
release if they
better.
can
They
get the
better
rights
do
to
it.
do
We
it.
need it.
What
It's
all?
also almost the 10-year anniversary, I think, and I'm just hoping it happens around that because I think the 10 years 25 or 24.
Oh, let's look.
It's one of those.
23, I think.
I'm so sorry,
need it.
Catherine Arden fans that aren't N.K. Jemisin fans who are here.
You should be.
You should be. You should
If
be.
if you
But
are
also,
a
like
Catherine Arden
they only
fan,
very recently started getting nice editions of Hobb, and like she was
That's
forgotten
a
for a
good
long
point.
time. So
Yeah.
like women
So
in
20
fantasy are
now?
finally getting nice covers.
right? So it came
Mine-
out 2015. So yeah, we're like a couple
close,
years.
we're
So
close.
we're getting there. We're getting there. Maybe we'll get a good 10-year edition.
But publishing
All right.
has realized what we will spend for pretty
Yep.
covers, so it's
Look.
time for them to, Cassandra Clare and all these gals have enough. Can you
Mhm.
please?
What's also is these like brand new releases, debut novels that are getting like sprayed pages and like
Yes.
foiling, and I'm like, who is this? Who cares about this? Give me A.K. Jemison.
Yes.
I'm like, Empire of the Vampire was everywhere with special editions, and I was just like,
That
how many
God.
special before
Oh
the
my
release?
God.
It doesn't make any, or like, I mean, I have one of Addie LaRue. It was like 1 year. Anniversary edition used to take like 10 years to get.
Yeah,
like,
they
an
did a
edition.
1 year anniversary.
now they're like
it's because
1
it took
year.
off. It's because it took off on TikTok, and it's been a hard year for publishing. That's
Even
why.
for
Has
That's
it been a
why.
hard year for publishing?
Well,
No,
with
I know
saying that.
who gave the girls the Song of Achilles girls something else to like put up, because like those two books are like, if you want to cry your heart out, Addie LaRue and the Song of Achilles will forever reign in that category.
But like, even a
But
Song of Ice and
Cersei,
Fire, they're doing.
Cersei.
Even a Song of Ice and Fire.
Oh, if you
the
like
illustrated
Cersei, you would like this
edition.
series.
Oh yeah,
I
if you
think.
like Cersei, you would like Bear and the Nightingale. That's a good, yeah.
Just trying to bring it back, unfortunately, because I
Sorry.
feel like there's a purpose.
Sorry
to
to
the video.
derail it. I just
Back to
I have a lot of feelings
please listen to us and make. We're waiting. Broken.
favorite character, Oya, for me,
Oh yes,
was the sibling that I really enjoyed the most.
Is it not Olga?
I thought it was
No,
Olga or
no,
Olga.
it's Olya. Olya.
Well, that's the
It's
thing. Like,
all
the
of
book has
them.
different spellings and different names that are used, and because of Russian names, have different ways you call someone based off informality.
Oh yeah, Olya might be like her like nickname or something.
It's like with love and affection, like a
Like
Yeah.
Vasya had Vasya and Vasilia
Vasilisa.
and
Well, my favorite.
Okay, but so her name
sibling
is Olga.
Sasha.
It's just like they
Yeah.
call her Olga.
and Sasha
Okay.
was the same, the brother, right?
Sasha
yeah.
and Alexander.
Sasha,
yeah.
Alyosha. Yeah.
he was a good brother, the younger one. He
Yeah.
supported Vasya. That was nice.
I'm hoping that's a thread that was left loose. Alyosha and Irina and Mariah are all loose. There could be more to this later down the line.
Yes.
I mean, so my favorite is Vasya. She's why I read the series. But if we're talking about like second favorites, maybe that's more interesting. I don't know. The reason I read these books was because of Vasya's stellar
Well,
character.
Solovey, I mean, and
I mean, Solovey's great, but since we're in the spoiler sections, what do you do for half of book 1 and most of book 3?
Cry.
That's why Girl is your favorite, because you only read Girl in Tower, where it's always Sullivan.
Right. Right.
I was like, I know she did not.
He was so snarky, so sassy. It's just
I will never forgive her for that scene. There's very few things that have like upset me like that. Evan Winters at the end of Rage of Dragons.
yes,
Those two
yes.
scenes like make me so angry. And like the description, like
Mhm.
the descriptions of how it happened.
It was too good.
So
it
you
was too
typed
good.
this all the way out. Like you really thought about this.
And then you read over it. Okay.
It's like she sat there and thought, what could I do to just really rip them open, shred their soul, and then rip their heart out like Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
So you
I
guys
mean,
all sound like you got to read these in the comfort of your home and cry in peace among friends
Yes.
and support. I
Yes.
was on my commute at 7:30 in the morning going into work reading the second chapter of a book. It's not supposed to be there yet. We're not supposed to be intense. And then
Yeah,
I have to go do some mindless grunt work at work and just be in my feelings.
I've
think
never
those
cried
ones-
like that
Oh my
20
God.
pages in. I have never. It
on my
dethroned Ruin.
I was-
Ruin is no longer the book that made me cry the hardest.
Evie,
Um,
were you going to say something?
Yeah,
Oh no, I was just gonna say, talk about how on the reread I actually bawled even more when, I mean, since we're getting into spoilers, when Solovey came back and he's like, "I was asleep, but I'm here. I missed you," and I'm like,
Oh man. When Morosco pulled the nightingale out of his coat, I exploded. Because then I knew what was gonna happen.
She ain't had to do me like that.
No, she didn't.
Would now be a bad time to tell you guys that I didn't cry at all reading any of these books?
I didn't
have a
cry
heart.
either. I just
I
Are
wasn't
you
happy.
alive? Are you a vampire? Do you have a pulse?
I'm
doesn't like
trying.
books,
Like
so
I mean, I'm not surprised.
I can't remember. Maybe I teared up. I didn't really cry either, though. Like
I
I
was
think
reading
was just
Wisdom of
more
Crowds.
shocked. I was just like, what?
I was crying. I just how dare.
I
But
don't
didn't
remember.
cry
It was
at
also like a
Elizabeth
year
Girls.
ago.
I-
I feel like I might have a little bit, but I didn't, not memorably.
I will say
so
that.
unexpected.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm saying like in general, like I was not prepared. Like when you
Me
start
either.
a book, a series finale, for me in fantasy, they normally like ease you back into it. Like very rarely do you go into a finale with a big bang on paper.
Yeah.
And like
You know what I think it is I think like there was a lot of foreshadowing that some of that was going to happen, so I was kind of expecting it. Like, so
I think if
Well,
I'd
but-
reread Baron the Nightingale before
I-
going into Winter of the
oh,
Witch,
see, I did.
I would have seen it. But since I
Okay.
never reread any of them, I just read Baron the Nightingale, Girl in the Tower, and then waited a year, and then read Winter of the Witch with no reread.
Okay.
I was just like, and
makes
like
sense.
Monet was saying, chapter 2 is not when your heart hurts in a book. That's not. It's not scheduled for that
So
part of the
I
book.
just
Still
feel like
remind the people
because
what
these-
happened in the last one.
because these books are so like fairy tale-esque, I feel like when stuff like that happens in them, it doesn't hit as hard because I'm like, well, they might fairy tale-ishly solve this,
Right.
or they'll see each other. Like I don't know. Like if it's in like a Game
Yeah.
of Thrones, someone's dead, I'm like,
See?
oh, they dead. So like, oh,
I
that's
mean,
over.
I
But-
still cried,
Yeah, I hear
but
you.
then I had hope that she was going to fix it, and then it never got fixed. So when it did at the end, I wasn't expecting it. So that's why I just exploded. It was almost like relief. But then I was mad because I'm like, a whole damn book without my favorite character.
I think it was the description. Like when he went down and the leg was
Yeah.
broken, I was just like,
oh no.
no. But then it was the description. Like
Yeah, it was so like it's like one that you have to reread that sentence. You're like, what?
Well, and just the way she felt about it, and she couldn't resolve her grief for the longest. I couldn't either. I was like, I felt the same as she did.
I was really
walked
glad
by
she
fire,
did it.
like, a couple of pages later, and I did not care because I was still stuck on Solovey. That it took a minute for me to
I
be like,
quit reading. I put it down.
The
I was
fire,
like-
we literally just walked out of flames. I didn't even process that because of the horse.
So I will say that even though I love Solovey, because I'm the resident horse girl, I think in this group, but I think Arden did just probably a genius thing by introducing Dead Grib in the
Oh,
Witch,
I loved
and I
him.
think he provided a little bit of the kind of comfort with and not naivete, but like innocence that Solovey provided throughout the rest of
Yeah.
the series. So
Yeah.
and he was so sweet, just a little
Yeah.
mushroom guy.
I know. He was so cute.
I am the first.
And I mean, like what Monet was saying about the third book, I just love Vasya having to like basically be on her own and then struggle with her own internal balance.
Yeah.
Because like balance was like a theme the whole series, but the third book is where it's really just like, here's the line, where are you going? And I think if Solovey was there, that would have been too much of a tether. She wouldn't have been able to go almost too far.
Yeah.
I know.
So speaking of themes, and this kind of also not a favorite character, but Constantine,
Oh
my God, I was just like, I hate you so much.
I thought we were done with him after book 1. So when
I
in Girl
know.
Tomorrow, I was like,
And then
what
they
are you
bring him
doing here?
back.
Why aren't you dead?
And then
He could never just die.
No.
Oh my God.
And then in that second book, I was like, this better not be who I think it is. I was like, oh.
Mhm.
He's like Barrow from Jade City. He just will not leave.
And
Oh,
He's just such fragile masculinity, and I cannot
Yes.
handle him.
Oh, it's the
Also,
worst.
in Girl in
Oh
the
my
Tower,
God.
the deal he makes, I'm like, sir, you have lost all ability to say to do some kind of like mental gymnastics to like make it like, no, but I was doing it for the right reasons. Like when you made that deal, sir, there
Mhm.
are no right reasons. What are you doing?
but it's like that overlap. He's that overlap of the fragile like masculinity and then with the patriarchy in the church because
Yeah.
they keep
What he
make,
is
they
is
make
Frollo from
excuses.
Hunchback of Notre Dame, only young and attractive.
Well, it's also like all of the repressed sexuality and like, angry, what are
Narcissism.
narcissism, but like, it's like those, I can't think of the
It's just like
there's a word for those guys, incels. He's like
Oh,
an
yeah.
incel.
just like everything and just doing these things and always finding some way like some thread of well, modern day in the Bible, or some thread from religion, some one line to make it, you
But
know,
he's like
justify.
borderline basically singing the Hellfire song from Hunchback of Notre Dame, except looking hot while doing it. And
It's
like,
not borderline. It's very telegraphed.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
which is
I mean, he's not actually
creepier.
singing, but like,
But you know what? Like, I also like the fact that he's attractive, because that makes it creepier, but also more realistic. Because, like, how many of us know, like, good-looking men who are just
Mhm.
that kind of person?
They use that.
You
But then,
know?
of course, if it's a woman, then she's bad or whatever, or ungodly for using her womanly wills
Well,
to
and
seduce
he's not the
man.
only man who's like has a weird responses to Vasya, though. We have the main character in book 2, the villain guy. I can't remember his name. You guys have said his name a
Cassian?
million times, but yeah. And then in the first book, the person she almost marries and then doesn't marry her because she saves someone on a horse.
Oh my god.
How dare she?
There's like the level of toxic masculinity and like
which is why I think when we talked about favorite characters, I was gonna say just like both of her brothers. I mean, someone mentioned Alyosha, but I remember when I read Bear the Nightingale how much I immediately felt attached to Sasha
Yes.
and was
Yeah.
like, why is he gone for this whole book?
Yes.
And then
I
when we
know.
started with like seeing more of Sasha in the beginning of Girl in the Tower, I was like, is this just going to be like his book now? Is it going to be like Vasya is book 1 and Sasha is book 2? It's called Girl in the Tower. I have questions, but like,
Yeah.
I'm here for Sasha.
yeah.
Because
Oh, that
Sasha
reminds me
also
of the
presents
girl in
like,
the tower, though, Olga's daughter, who like isn't a main character, but I really
Mhm.
loved her. And,
Yeah.
like,
yeah, but like Sasha represents an equal, like a counterbalance to Constantine because he's a very religious person. So it's not like the only Christian religious person is this
Right.
like utter creep that is Constantine. You also have Sasha, and you
Right.
also have his older mentor, whose name escapes me, who is like they are
Sergei.
really nice characters.
Mhm.
Father Sergei.
Yeah.
I like
No, I think this
Dimitri
book does
too.
a great job of not being like religion is bad and like
No.
it's not about like one religion
Constantine is
consuming
bad.
the other. It's when you're
Yes.
unbalanced about it. It's when you go
Yeah.
too far.
Well, and that it's also about how these institutions can sometimes provide safe houses for people who are abusive and narcissistic.
Yeah, that's what I got from Constantine's like following him, because you get so used to speaking with like the power of God and people just showing you so much respect that they start to idolize you as a godly figure and not as this, vessel. And so I think Vasya challenging that was just like, you're so used to people just bowing down, kissing your feet, throwing you bread. And now it's more than just about challenging God. Like, I had God's power in me. And for what he would go to feel that power again over her specifically, because she's the one who made him feel weak. And so like the figures that he started turning to just to feel power over, like, I need to dominate you. The thousand me, that's not enough. Like, it has to be you. That consumption, I was just like, okay, this is very interesting to follow, because it's realistic for priests to start to, the power goes to their head if you don't check it.
Yeah. And they're like, how dare you? Like, when everyone else falls in line and you're like, can't you see what everyone else is doing? You're supposed to believe me. What I say is truth and fact. Stop questioning me. And Vasya's like, no. And
like it runs in Catholicism history where like they would put you into these situations where like, I'm going to break you mentally. Like you will conform, you will do this thing. And Vasya, I was so proud of her for like, even when she broke down, not to you. I will cry. I will burn. They can rip me apart, but it will not be you. And so
I loved
girl.
I love too the fact that like it's not only Vasya's family that thinks to themselves about the idea of putting her in a convent and being like, you can't. That's not right. I can't. Even Constantine is like, I can't really picture that, but I'm making it happen. But like even he's like, that doesn't work. Like, she doesn't belong there. But we have to make it so, because we have to make it so.
Yeah. And I just, with that balance, and then with all the different, of course I don't know all the terms, but all the different like folklore creatures, fairy tale creatures that she comes in contact with, and talking to them about how people forgot them and stopped giving them bread, and just all these and so I just love that balance and how the religion coming in and pushing that out. But now I just need to reread it. I need to.
I know, right? I know.
This is kind of themes and favorite character, but not a favorite character, but biggest turnaround on a character was the bear. We're like, you know,
Yes.
he's our antagonistic force in the first
Mhm.
book, and then we low key he's the only ally she has for the beginning of the third book.
I mean,
Yeah.
Medved went full Loki and joined the Avengers.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
but it was. It's not that like I think I liked him more, but I think I understood his force of nature more.
Mhm.
And I think, you know, really encapsulating that these things are forces of nature, even with I can't believe we haven't talked about Morosco yet, like at all. But
I mentioned.
Well, I mean, this is my question.
okay, Evie, what were you going to say though?
Oh no, I was just gonna say that kind of going back to Medved, that I think there's an interesting kind of parallel in a way, and kind of twining of Constantine and Medved's arcs, because you know it turns out that the Constantine was the only one that the bear really even cared about in a way.
He loved
And it
him.
was through his what is it, the iconastis, the icon like screen
Iconostasis.
things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting. But anyways, back to Morosco more importantly. So
Well, because yeah, he starts as a force of nature and then becomes a human. Because he also has like
Yeah.
a weird arc
Mhm.
throughout the story.
I thought that like the lack of balance between him and his brother. I think that everything has an opposite, and I think that when he dominated it took something away from him. I think
Yeah.
that not having a balance between him and his other self is part of his like diminished into like I'm not as strong as I used to be. There's a give and take situation between both of them, and Vasya provides the perfect balance, almost like Yena in 100,000 Kingdoms, where like you need this center force in between these two great gods, and so that's like
Yeah.
how I viewed it.
And it's funny how the Coyote were constantly always telling Vasya, we're watching you, we're watching you, we're watching you. All this time, like through all the books until the end of Winter of the Witch, I never thought how the Coyote felt having to choose between Morosco and Medved, and how they were wanting Vasya to not be the third party in this war, but to just unite the brothers, so to speak,
Yeah.
and keep them in check.
Yeah.
And when that dawned on me, I thought, wow, that is. I was not expecting it.
100,000 Kingdoms. Back to N.K. Jemisin and how amazing.
Yeah, no, if you like 100,000 Kingdoms, you should probably, if you like messy god relationships.
Yeah.
Granted, anyone who's in this section presumably has read this book.
Right. Yeah.
I just really, I liked how love changed both of them in their own way.
and it wasn't necessarily romantic love.
Right,
Like yeah,
right.
we talked about like the romance and stuff like that, but I mean, like you said, Monet, it's they have an understanding. It's like an equal equal perception of each other because they're both outsiders, and it's not necessarily romantic in a way. I will say, to kind of segue to the Morosco thing, the one scene, if I had to nitpick, that I really didn't like, and especially on reread, is the scene in the bathhouse in The Winter of the Witch. It does. I don't like.
You mean
I
you
get
can
it,
choose
but
to
I'm
not
like,
like
it really
it.
isn't necessary. So
I mean,
Are you sure though?
I
Isn't
was
it?
waiting
I
for that
think
the
it-
whole time.
I mean,
I
here's
mean,
what I like
you know,
about
you're
it.
like 2.5 books in. Like, you gotta
It's
have
time.
a payoff. Like, it is
It's
time.
time.
Yeah.
but my thing is like, oh yay, having
Not
doing
waiting
this
for how
makes him
uncomfortable-
remember. Like, I'm like, really. So,
Vasya felt
Well, I
uncomfortable.
mean, I think it makes sense because it's like, what could be a more like human thing to do, right?
Something
Like, I think
he
that's
had-
the idea.
He wanted.
I mean, I don't think I think that scene is not actually like supposed to be deep because I think gods have like sex for sex
Yeah.
sake all the time. I don't think that's a valid thing. Like the Greek gods they're not human and they had a ton of children. Like,
You become a goose in a golden shower and thereby impregnate human female.
but I think maybe it was making Morosco come to terms with the fact that he had a connection with this individual and he's not used to having connections. And maybe this was the physical manifestation of it. But I also think it was low-key fan service to us who are rooting for this romance, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Because they never said I love you. They never really thought that. They just, as I could in my own way, I loved you.
Yeah. When
Yeah.
I like that she pined for him, because I like a little bit of pining in my books, but it was never to the detriment of her thinking. Like, she was always relatively clear-headed, and there came a couple points, right, where she's just like, I can't keep doing this. You have to decide if you like me or not. I need to continue on, and I'm not used to young female protagonists pining over much more powerful figures, putting their foot down before they even have power, because that was before she's, like, in her witchiness, you know?
Yeah. I also appreciate that it's like part of her coming of age and like choosing what she's going to do about her sexuality after growing up in a culture that wants to control it.
Yeah. That was the silver lining of that scene for me, was the very passing commentary on owning a woman's sexuality at that time. So
But it
I
didn't
do
feel like
agree
a
it was
scene
fan
written to say
servicey
that.
specifically for me.
I was say I feel like the way the scene is written, you could write it in a way where it comes across as like, oh, it's humanizing him, oh, it's taking power, of her like own sexuality, but it's not written like that. It's written like fan servicey, sexy time. So
I'm okay with that. Like, it
Yeah.
can be all of the above, and like I'm happy.
Sometimes
enough.
books can entertain.
Yeah.
But I feel like they had a moment afterwards where they were just like, yeah,
That just happened.
like construction around a relationship is not us. Like they just shared a little peck and was like, yeah, this was not. We did it for the sake of like doing it, but like we knew before we did this that like we aren't those people. So for me, I was just like, I knew this, but like I'm glad y'all have figured that out.
And they talked about it, and I think that's also,
it was healthy. It was good. I liked it too.
It was very predictable and tropey in one way, and very slightly subvertive in others. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if I recall, sorry, my cat just randomly started meowing. If I recall correctly, they also like said at the end, or Vasya thinks something along the lines of like, is this going to be a new legend or story created from this, like everyone's seeing them coming out of the bathhouse or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm misremembering.
No,
but...
that was.
No,
the
I
thing.
think Morosco said that because they
Like,
called her the Winter Queen.
Like folklore is gonna arise from this situation.
Yeah.
Well, then I almost wonder if like Catherine Arden put that in there because if anyone who was like, hey, this is not in any folklore, she was like, well, new folklore will be written about this very scene.
Yes.
But to answer the question, Moroshko, bae, but like not 100% for me.
I wouldn't mind being in his winter house. That seemed like a cool place. He didn't seem ugly. It seems fine.
I just think of the like anthropomorphized personification of winter is so desexualized to me that the idea of that being sexualized is like having sex with the snow. Like I just
I do agree. I don't normally go for cold supernatural entities. That's why I've never been pro vampire over werewolf back when that debate was big in 2005 or whatever.
Team Jacob Black, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, like I was also always more Team Jacob, but I think that had more to do with personality than anything else. So I mean, I liked it. I also kind of like though because he, his like yes, it's like winter, but it's also like cozy blankets and hot beverages in winter.
I mean, okay, I wasn't trying to make the point that I don't like it because of its coldness. I meant like he is snow in human form. Like he is a weather phenomenon. Like that's not a thing that you feel sexually about, like.
But reading like
put the
the way she
fire out.
described him, like that's what he is. But like her descriptions and like I don't know, in the story, he was more than just snow.
Yeah,
in human form.
He had a
It was
presence,
packed
and there
rather
was
well.
I mean, he wasn't like Olaf.
Yeah.
He also like he had this danger about him, and like my like fantasizing part of me is like, yes, I like this amount of danger, but he also seems respectful. Like I don't know, he had
he had like
a lot
good
of my tropes
blend.
in like a male hero.
Same.
Yeah, I think it's like a death god essentially, or death personified. He I mean he's the embodiment of winter. Like winter is typically not just sudden death type chaos catastrophic type thing. It's a very slow, if you're gonna die in winter, you're just gonna go to sleep and you're gonna die of cold, to be quite morbid. But But yeah. So,
He
I don't know.
feels right because you're right. He feels more reminiscent of the way people put like Hades in romances. Like that's the vibe.
Yeah. Also,
Yes.
speaking of dying, we forgot the nurse in the first book, and I don't know if anyone else loved her, but I really
I loved
did
her.
love her.
Yeah.
just wanted to shout her out real quick because I just thought.
But also,
was
she
cool.
should have given Vasya that necklace.
Yes,
Solved a
she
lot
should.
of
She
problems
should have.
if she hadn't hung on to
Okay,
that.
if you were responsible for a 10-year-old or 12, however old she was at the time, and the god of death gives
It's
you a
like
necklace
6,
to
wasn't
give
she?
her, I don't know if I would do it.
I mean,
I
fair.
don't know that I would not do it because he's the god of death. So I'd be like,
Right?
yes, sir.
The psychological like fear or like hysteria that crept in when Catholicism and Christianity came in, I was just like, everybody is being subject to fear. And like Dunya was like the perfect example of that, because you taught these kids to show respect, love the land, pay tribute, you know what I'm saying? Like doing that kind of thing is what you instilled in them. So like when she went down, I was just like, ain't no hope for nobody.
Especially when she came back. It's like, oh dear.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That
I forgot about that.
a lot happened. Now that I'm sitting here talking about these books,
Yeah.
A lot happens.
It's all together shorter than one Stormlight Archive, and a lot more happens.
Way more
And I-
happens. Yeah.
But it
So-
doesn't feel rushed in any
No.
way, which is
No.
great.
I know
No,
Monet,
they're
when
very
you
well
started
crafted,
reading
I
them,
think.
I was like, oh no. And then
you know what?
when you started reading this series, I was like, oh no.
So I was going to read them. I was on Zoom with Aaron and like our usual friends, and they went on a 30-minute rant about how terrible the series was. And I listened to them, so I was just sitting quiet. At the end of the 30 minutes, it was like, Monet, you would love them. I said, y'all just spent 30 minutes dragging the books. And now they're like, yeah, no, it's perfect for you. You're going to love it. And I bought it ready to bully them, because if I didn't love it, I was going to like yell at them, because like, if you hate it, why am I not? And if I did love it, you have no taste. So I'm buying this for the sole purpose of yelling at them.
You drag these books like, oh, it's perfect for you. What are you trying to say about
But
it?
also, I think that, like, didn't Aaron use the audiobooks that everyone hates to read them the first time through?
Oh.
You know what? Like, two of the worst audiobooks is this series and Daughter of Smoke and Bone. And I'm convinced that if you try to listen to them on audio, you are not going to like them.
I don't like them.
That's okay. That's great that you like them.
I'm glad you
I think
did.
If you
I,
hate
like,
an audiobook, it can make reading a book very painful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
did
some
not.
audiobooks just don't enhance. And this is such an atmospheric read, and like you have to immerse yourself into the story, and then that's all a different experience for all of us.
It
So
is.
I think there's a certain of like tethering to reality that like it was like shifting gears in a car, and I was just like, no, I'll do it myself, because it sounds better in my head. So I got it.
Same. No, me too. Because
There
I
are certain
tried it, because I
authors,
like audiobooks, but I just like could not with this, which is why it took me so long to read the rest of the series, is because I was like, well, I can't listen to the audiobooks. So I have to like make time.
I read
But-
The Way of Kings with my eyes because I cannot do Michael Kramer's narration, and
So it's
I
not
feel like
just me.
everyone
I
loves
don't like
Michael Kramer, and then all these people, like Hillary doesn't like Michael Kramer. I don't like Michael
don't
Kramer.
like
You
him.
don't like Michael Kramer. Like, actually, I don't think anyone likes Michael Kramer, and everyone's been too afraid to say it.
That's
And
Because I
everyone's
love
funny.
Kate
finally
Redding.
speaking up.
I enjoy Kate Redding a lot, but whenever I have to hear Michael Kramer in Wheel of Time, I like zone out.
That's
He
hilarious.
sounds like he has a frog in throat, so like I call him Mr. Frog in throat, and so he just takes me something about when he's talking. My brain is like, so what am I gonna eat for dinner? I am not listening like at all.
It's like a professor who I know I'm supposed to pay attention to.
That's so funny.
So yeah,
I didn't like him, but I didn't mind. Like I was okay with it. Like, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But like, he doesn't sound interested in what he's reading, and I'm like, how am I going to be interested in this when you sound like you are being forced to read this?
Which in theory he is, but he's getting paid to be forced to read.
You know, like when you put something on in the background for like just noise, like a TV show before you go to sleep. Michael Kramer reminds me of that. Like he's just on for the sake of like having something in the background, but I am not listening.
I mean, he's not a horrible narrator, but he is not the one that enhances the reading experience for me.
But
Like,
everyone loves him, and I'm just like, this is your king. This is the narrator.
Is
of all
but
stories.
how much of it is that there are people who just love anything about the series no matter what.
Yeah, like if they
It gets
love
specifically like called out though as one of the things that people love about it is like, oh, and it's got Michael Kramer and Kate Redding, the perfect team to read these perfect books. And I'm like,
Well, to bring it back to this N.K. Jemisin chat, Robin Miles is a great narrator.
Robin Miles.
She is a great
Broken Heart.
narrator. Yeah, she's a great
Robin
narrator.
Miles, I will read books just if she's the narrator for them. There's a YA duology that I wasn't planning to read, but she's the narrator, so now I might read it.
I'm just glad that like other people are like not also like head over heels for Michael Kramer, because I thought I was an anomaly. I'm like, something's wrong with me because everyone else loves it, but like, okay.
What's great
And
is when
it's
something
not
is so
just-
popular, you're never alone in any opinion.
Well, and then it's not just Stormlight Archives. Like, if you're thinking maybe it was just those particular books, I read another book that those two narrated, and it was so boring that I was just,
I'm just like, why
And
y'all
like,
calling
I
them?
finally read a series where only Kate Redding did the narration. That's the Memoirs of Lady Trent, and she's fantastic on her own. She's amazing, and I do like. She makes Wheel of Time interesting to me. Like, so when I'm in the girls' perspectives, I actually really like Wheel of Time. But then when I'm back with the boys, who I think are wet blankets anyways, it just gets worse.
Maybe
I never
that's
like
why I
them.
tend to drift when I'm listening to Wheel of Time. Maybe it's him because he's not terrible, but he also isn't like amazing. And I'm like, what did just happen? I'm like, oh, I have to start the chapter over. I didn't
Check
get
next time if you're with the girls or the guys. Maybe you'll see.
but
It's
if you ever
usually
want
the
to listen
gals that
to
I
a
enjoy.
bad audiobook that's funny bad, you should listen to all of the Song of Ice and Fire audiobooks, because that guy hasn't decided how he wants to pronounce anything, so it changes from sentence to sentence, and he calls the
no.
series The Song of Fire and Ice. And I was like, you don't want to take that again, because that's not the name of the series. Like, he was friends with George R.R. Martin, and George R.R. Martin was like, I want him to do it, and everyone was like, he's not good, and he's like, I don't care, I want him to do it. And we're like, but he's really not good.
Yikes.
This is reason number 2027 why
I did not listen to that series on audio.
Ice and Fire is not done.
I
So
was
what kills me is only the fourth book, they tried a new narrator, a narrator that I actually like, that he's done other audiobooks as well that I really like. And I was like, oh, and then apparently the fans were so used to / weirdly loyal now to Roy that they got upset. And so then they went back to Roy for the fifth book. And I was like, no. So there's one good
my
audiobook
gosh.
for the entire series, and it's for the fourth book.
The good news is, he might be dead by the time we get Winds of Winter. So
Oh, he is dead. So we will
Oh,
absolutely
is
have
he?
a different narrator.
I thought you guys were talking about George Martin, and then I thought Leanna just casually was announcing that he was dead, and I'm like,
No, Roy Detroit's the narrator of
the wife will be like, but the final book, it will be like Wheel of Time all over again. And please don't call Sanderson to finish.
no, I don't think anyone's gonna finish it. I don't think so.
Sanderson couldn't. Someone on TikTok that was
He
like,
couldn't
I think
write that
they're
dark.
already
They
written,
should have
but-
Abercrombie finish it.
yes.
Okay,
That-
but no
Like,
one's
someone was
But
talking
no
about
no one's
Daniel
gonna finish
Abraham.
it because George R.R. Martin doesn't want anyone to finish it if he dies.
I think it's in his will.
It just
Really?
won't happen.
Yeah.
It's always good
Someone
to get
speculated they think it's done and that he won't publish. They'll be published after he dies. And I'm like, I mean, I guess. But yeah, Sanderson wouldn't be a good pick to finish that because he is definitely not anything close to like the
People just
grimness.
pick him because he's popular and he finished another Dead Guy series. It's not like a
Yeah.
really hard connecting dots.
Well, see,
They just
that's
don't think
that's
past
the difference, though, because Robert Jordan wanted his series to be finished, even if he
Mhm.
died. George R. R. Martin is like, if I'm dead, nobody else is finishing this. So, like, listen to the man. Stop trying to cast an author to finish him. He's still alive. He doesn't want anyone else doing this. So, stop predicting for when he's dead.
I just, authors don't owe us anything, but
I have written my
George-
dissertation.
he
It's
keeps
clocking in at
promising.
210 pages. I have gotten an undergrad degree, a master's, a PhD, and written a dissertation in the time that it's taken us not to get Winds of Winter. He doesn't owe us anything, but he has not been working hard.
He's like,
No, he's just
if
been at
if I
conventions
haven't
and-
finished it by this date, show up at my house.
Okay, George, where you at? I'll pull
I
him
mean,
out.
I just feel bad for people who, like Leanna, who really love it, and I would want for them to see it crafted and completed. In
But
its
I'm
final
also one
form.
of the loudest, like, leave authors alone people. Like, I like Kingkiller and I like A Song of Ice and Fire, and also anyone who's demanding the next book and yelling at the authors. I'm like, you sit down and be quiet and grateful for what they gave us. And if they
Yeah.
never give us anything else, well then whatever. They gave us what they gave us.
And he's also like, he has written
Yeah.
so much.
To bring it back to Arden, this is a contained, complete, very well executed trilogy.
I thought you were going to say that this was a contained chat, that we only talked about Catherine Arden. We took no
No,
tangents.
no.
But we do
love
love
that
them.
trilogy.
Like, we do love them. They were great. But
Yeah, we do love a completed series. Anytime, any kind of book, when I'm like, it's finished, so you don't have.
Yeah.
middle grade? Catherine Arden's middle grade book?
Oh,
I
I
read
read
the
her
first one.
first.
I'm
I
going
read
to
the
get
first
them.
one and it was fantastic.
I
really
hated
liked it.
it, so
Well, I liked it too, Bethany. Gosh, Leanna. Sure.
I was like, how did the author of Winternight write this?
Disrespect.
Well, we're back to Leanna having, harsh, unpopular
Shocker.
opinions. It's fine.
Fine.
No,
it is.
it
It is
was
very
bound to
different from
happen at some
Winternight.
point.
I thought it was a fantastic middle grade horror novel. It is very different from Winternight, but I loved it. It was great, and it's
fun.
dealing with like grief, and it's super creepy. The scarecrows were creepy as hell.
Ooh. I don't like
And
it.
I was like,
I just love seeing Leanna going, nope, those scarecrows.
I was just like, I don't
I
know what
made
book
those for
Bethany
Halloween.
read. That sounds great. That's not what I read.
You had a misprint. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you got the.
I
Got
can't
a
tell you
wrong
how
copy.
often I think that when there's books that people love, and I'm like, did I
That's
get
how
a
I felt about
different
Project
one?
Hail Mary.
Did you guys know that Catherine Arden wrote the first book in Hawaii, of all places?
No.
Yes, I
She
actually
wrote it like in the least winter place I could think of.
Yeah, and I actually saw an interview that she did for it's just some random YouTube video that I saw, and she was talking about how in Hawaii, she was working at I think a horse farm, and across the street or a neighbor was a Russian family, and the little girl's name was Vasya, and so that like started the gears running. I was like, that is so sweet. Oh my god.
Oh, isn't she? Doesn't she have? She's working on a new.
I think
series?
so. I think so.
Yeah.
And I think she has
it's
like
like World War
one more book in her middle grade series to come out. There's one book per season.
Mhm.
And then I think she's working on something else that's for
I think it's
older
supposed to be set in like
audiences.
World War One. It could be wrong. I could be thinking of something else, but
Interesting.
I'm invested.
What's great is that she's in her early 30s. I'm in my late 20s, so I got hopefully a lot of good years of finding books I hopefully like by her.
Anyone who watches this video, if you know how I can get the Turkish edition of The Bear and the Nightingale, that'd be great. Okay, thank you.
Oh wow.
How close are you to Turkey? Like,
I'm closer than America, but
I know, but I mean, how close is Italy to Turkey? Like, what is that type of flight time?
It's not that far, actually. Turkey's pretty close to Italy.
I've been trying to find the Russian edition of at least the first book, and I cannot find it anywhere.
it's so upsetting. I need someone to create like a central, sometimes you can get lucky with like Book Depository or stuff. Like
Mhm.
UK editions are very easy to come by, but like I need like a centralized, someone to
Yeah,
create
well,
a centralized website for
You
foreign
can't even
editions.
trust like Google Translate. Like I have, there's a Russian YouTuber, Elena. Well, she's a YouTuber now. She wasn't a YouTuber before. And like she told me about these Russian editions of First Law that have like illustrated covers, and I was like, I want them. And like she was like guiding me through the Russian website, and I was like, I literally do not. And every time I have to check your chat, then I am like exited out of the page on the Russian website. So then I have to remember what you said, go back and forth. And I was like, can I give you my address and my money and you will order these for me because I cannot do this. So like there's no other way like to order foreign editions unless you speak the language and can order from the website.
Oh my gosh.
Also, Monet, did you tell Erin we were filming this? She actually has a Bear and the Nightingale tweet just like an hour ago.
Yeah, I was on Zoom with her and we were sprinting, and I was like, I gotta go, but like I'll be back. I'll be back later. We were supposed to be reading.
Yeah, she just tweeted a question about Vasya, and I'm like, huh, this is very
We
timely.
were talking about it because I said that Vasya I think is indigenous. And Erin said no, she's white. I'm like, I'm pretty sure she's not white. Pretty sure she's indigenous, but
Well, I mean, also like there's like white people were indigenous to some places in Europe too at some point in history.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think her family's lived on the plot of land that she's on.
Yeah.
It was implied for at least 4 generations.
Yeah. So I mean, essentially.
But aren't there? I am not a history major or anything, but aren't there? Because like indigenous people in Russia who aren't necessarily white, they're more they look closer to like Asian,
like where ancient Rus was, and those people descended from like Asian migration.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like up near Siberia, you have people who
so I'm
are.
pretty sure Vasia's people would be a part of that, and like they were there before Russia became like this white country. So I don't think that Vasia is white. I think
Isn't one of her family members like inspired by a historical figure? I can't remember exactly, but I thought either her father or her mother or someone was inspired by someone who's related to one of the first rulers of what becomes Russia. I can't remember for sure. It was a complicated family tree, and obviously Vasia's fictional based off of folklore.
Wouldn't it have been Vasia's grandmother, the one that like is the progenitor of this bloodline, who like married into the royal
Sasha
family?
is based off a historical figure, isn't he?
Yeah, and the prince.
Yeah, so I think if we figure out who Sasha is related to, you can get maybe a more educated guess.
Yeah, well, because I think they're related to
Prince Vladimir Andreevich.
Because they were definitely well-off people. They were
Yeah.
related to royalty.
Right.
Like not just anyone gets like the daughter of some king to marry as your second wife.
Yeah, so Olga married the Prince Vladimir Andreevich. So I think that's what.
Yeah, but Sasha was based off someone in history, right? Like that's in the 3rd book, in The Winter of the Witch, in her acknowledgement, she talks about some battle that the last scene is inspired from. And I haven't read it in like over
that.
It was just a conversation we were having, but I was just like, I would be weary of like calling Vasia white in like traditional terms, because I don't think that is how she would have or is identified as today.
Well, I also don't think in the context of 14th century Russia using like our racial term of white to identify that culture makes sense, because they don't have race in 14th century Rus the way we do here in contemporary US. So.
Yes. Side note, I just looked, and if I tried to fly to Istanbul, Turkey from here,
the important questions.
It would take a long time. But if I flew to Rome first, then Rome to Istanbul, there's direct flights, only 2.5 hours.
Okay, so you're about a 10-hour drive. Not really a drive, but like 2.5 hours flight
you
time.
You could also visit the beautiful country of Turkey as like a vacation, not just go to get a book and come back.
Well, yeah, duh. I wouldn't just go get a book and come back. But,
I just remember lots of European countries being way closer than I knew they were closer than I thought, but then once I was there, having traveled across continental US, I was just like,
in America is so ghetto. Like it takes so long to get to just another state. It's so ridiculous and expensive.
Yeah.
Although that is one weird thing about being now in like the northeastern part of the US, because everything is much closer together. So that's like different.
The original states, yeah, they're real tiny. Once you get like to Pennsylvania and like upstate New York, then things. Yeah. New York's very long.
Northern California is basically a different state from Southern California.
Basically, yeah.
Yes. Well, we'll see about my travel to Turkey. Who knows? But do you have anyone have any final thoughts about the Winternight Trilogy that you'd like to share?
10 out of 10 would recommend.
It's fantastic.
Highly recommend.
Annual reread.
And we also recommend N.K. Jemisin, and we recommend, what else did we say? Robin Hobb.
Robin Hobb.
Robin Miles is a narrator.
Naomi Novik.
We have to recommend Michael Kramer.
Maybe not Deadly Education so much, but like her fairy tales.
Uprooted and Spinning Silver.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I understand she's never published in young adult because her first series was adult.
It's not young adult.
It's not young adult. They have a lot of the tropes, and I can understand the confusion.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Deadly Education?
Yeah, it's not
Deadly
young adult.
Education.
It's adult,
and
but it
Uprooted,
should
and
be young adult. They just trying to get that extra money, and it makes
I
me
think
mad.
it's just because her publisher is not a young adult publisher. Her first series was Temeraire. It's sometimes just who your publisher is.
But it's annoying because of the price, and they've been. I mean,
That's how I can tell when something's officially young adult is if the hardcover is $22 or $35. That's what makes it young adult.
Our final thoughts are the prices of books are stupid.
Some audiobooks suck and read the there you go.
yes, physical
Morocco
or
is
the
bae,
ebook.
even though Leanna has a point, but is bae.
Yes, very important.
Yes.
And The Girl in the Tower was the best book. Yay!
Amen. Say it again.
Well, I think that was it. This was fun, and now I want to reread them right now.
Oh, I have one more thing I want to say.
You
Yes.
can't say it.
I'm
Just
going to
kidding.
say because it's not about me. If you want super long form discussions, I think by the time this video goes up, there's one on Baron the Nightingale and Girl in the Tower on Evie's channel where people talk in depth about the books. And I think they stay more on track. We haven't filmed the second one yet.
And there will be one for the third book as well. But
But you should check out her channel because, yeah.
It'll be linked. Everyone's channel is going to be linked down below. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Please let us know down below in the comments if you've read the series or if we've encouraged you now to read the series. But thanks for joining us here at World Hoppers. And I guess we'll see you in our next video.
Bye.